To the point, formative, entertaining, and protecting the Second Amendment. Welcome back to Elfster's Rifles and Reloading, and I guess pistols, because apparently I've been on a pistol reloading frenzy. And tonight I am progressively reloading some 9mm progressive 147 grain pill flavors with a hollow point. And let me just make sure that my sound is working here. I see we already got some guys already in the Elfster's reloading room. Let me just make sure everything is working here. Sound is good. Sound is good. That's sounds good. Let me know if the sound is still crackling. I think I have it fixed, hopefully. But let me know how that sound is. But yeah, just a quick go over some progressive pistol reloading that I'm doing. I figured, heck, I'm going to be reloading. I might as well have you guys join me. And so what I have is 9mm 147 grain XTP. These are a hollow point bullets here. So just to show you the box, especially for those that are new. So this is about the heaviest bullet that you can, really on the heavy end of the spectrum for 9mm pill flavors. And this is a nice jacketed copper bullet. This isn't plated. If you watched my previous series with the berry bullets, those were plated. These are jacketed. So it's got a nice thick copper plating on it. And also these are a hollow point. And matter of fact, the box says designed for hunting, personal defense, and law enforcement applications, controlled to expand to 1.5 times its original diameter. And this is the actual bullet here. And you can see it's got a hollow point and it's got some serrations on the side. So it's got some really nice expansion to it. Matter of fact, it even has a bolt tail to it. So this is a nice heavy bullet. Like I said, it's on the heavy end of the 9mm spectrum that you're most likely going to reload. And I'm excited to get these going. I'm mainly reloading these for my Sig Sauer P320 compact, my everyday carry, and more for home defense and for my concealed carry. And I'm actually going to try running these through some of my PCCs, like my PSA 10.5-inch ARV and my FM9 10.5-inch AR pistols. And more times than not, usually with AR pistols, they have a heck of a time feeding these bullets. I'm curious to see how they perform. Usually it's not an issue with pistols, but for PCCs, pistol caliber carbines or pistol caliber pistols, whatever you want to call it, they usually have a heck of a time feeding these. So I'm curious to see how these feed with especially my PSA ARV that I've been doing that series on lately. So yeah, excited to get this going. And I'm going to drop 4 total grains of CFEpistol. And just a quick show you on the Hornady reloading manual. Matter of fact, this Hornady manual is so old, I had to go to the store and snap a picture of CFEpistol and add it to the 147 grain bullet flavors. You can see it's a 9mm Luger for those that are absolutely new. And I'm dropping at 4 total grains of CFE. It's not maxed out at 4.3, but it's just below that. So I'm kind of close to max, but not really. And it's roughly, obviously I haven't chronographed this, but I'm going to guess it's going to be roughly about 900 feet per second. And yeah, I'm excited to get these loaded up and have you guys join me on this adventure. Also, I am reloading with CCI 500 primers, also known as unobtainium. So I got a nice ample supply of these primers, and just to show some of you guys, just to see if some of you guys can salivate just a little bit. Kaboom! Just joking. Small pistol primers. I wish I could send some of these to you guys, but just can't do it. Just don't have the license. Sorry. And yeah, and Cole it actually recommends 1.10, but I'm going to go a little bit above that. And I've already ran a few and done a plunk test. I'm going to send these out just a little bit past recommended Cole. Recommended Cole, according to the Horny manual, is 1.100. I'm just going to go a smidge bit past that. So I'm going to do roughly 15 thousandths of an inch past that. And that's not really much. It's a, you know, it's a little bit. Matter of fact, I could put 15 thousandths of an inch on my calipers here. And it is something like, it's close enough. Can you see through those? That gap? It's not much. It's just a smidge over recommended coal, 15 thousandths of an inch over. It's not much. But I did a barrel plunk test. I'm about to show you that here a little bit, and ran in a case gauge. And when I say barrel plunk test, I literally took the barrel out of my SIG P320. Wish I could show that to you. It's right over here, but I can't because we're live. And I got a good old case gauge. I'm about to show that here to you guys here in a little bit. And I'm doing a case mouth crimp at the case mouth opening of the brass of 0.377, which is kind of standard for 9mm. But, you know, hey, I've been kind of blabbering a little bit. You're not damn near 40 people here in the Elfster's reloading room. Let me get these doors shut and see who is all jumping in already and see what kind of comments you have. So my good friend, Michael D, he is in and he is first, so he wins. The Dilly 187, my good friend, he's saying, yeah, buddy. Chad Arson is in the house. Jay Peterman is also saying hello, everybody. Jim Larum is in the house. Evening, gents. And Dilly's saying the sound is fine, so good. Just let me know if you hear any crackling. I think I got it fixed, but if I don't, definitely let me know. So P71 Collector saying ATF does not like short barrel rifles anymore. I think you got to rephrase that. Short barrel pistols with the braces. Yeah, who knows where that's going. Obviously, this is going to be an upward battle for us. I rarely ever talk about politics in this channel, and I don't plan on to. That's about where I'm going to leave that. That's where my other channel, Elfster's Men in Americas, is for. And do me a favor, check out the description box below. I have a link to Elfster's Men in Americas. That's where I'm going to do all my political BS over there. I try not to do any of that on this channel. This channel is strictly for learning and reloading and watching you guys watch me shoot firearms. So, but yeah, hopefully that doesn't go anywhere. That's about the extent of where I'm going to go with any politics. So Michael D saying CFEpistol likes to be on the high end. That's kind of where I'm at. So it's good to know. Hitting Steel CA, my good friend, amazing viewer, and I appreciate everything you've done for this channel. And he's saying, what is ATF you speak of? And P7 Collector saying ATF, always talking foolish. Isn't that the truth? Lead Mining 44 is also here, and he's saying, Todd, I love CFEpistol with the 9mm, and it's kind of a really universal powder, and this is actually the first time I've actually used it, and I'm excited to do these first reloads with CFEpistol. Usually I use Unique, but to show you some of the other pistol powders that I also have, and I got some bullseye here recently for some 45 ACP. I also have some tight group, and also obviously this got an extra jug here of CFEpistol. That's pretty much the extent of my pistol powder. Obviously, you guys know I'm more of a rifleman myself, but the times are tough like they are right now. You got to do what you got to do when it comes to pistol ammo. So I'm busting out the Progressive Press. Michael D is saying it sounds like Rice Krispies. Really? Does it really sound like Rice Krispies? Let me know. Sear. So Drain the Swamp 2.0 saying first year owning an AR300. I could see the obsession, my friends, and it really is an obsession, especially when it comes to 9mm PCCs or PCP, pistol caliber pistols. Absolutely love mine, especially the new PSA ARV that I got. And matter of fact, if you go to my playlist area here, I just started a series on that. Matter of fact, I'll clip you guys out and get you a little bit closer here and show you. But I just started this series on the PSA ARV, 10.5-inch barrel. And what's really special about this particular firearm is obviously it's a 10.5-inch AR pistol, 9mm, but it takes Scorpion mags, and it also has last round bolt hold open, which is huge. There's not really that many that I know of AR pistols that take Scorpion mags. There's a select few out there that have last round bolt hold open. Most of them do, but to have those two combined is a real benefit. And especially with pistol prices, the pistol ammunition prices they are right now, this is where doing all this is really coming into play. And if you're going to do any type of reloading in the reloading world for pistol, my recommendation is to just get a progressive press. This is where I started on with the Hornady lock and load AP press. I don't plan on selling it. I don't plan on upgrading to a Dillon, but if you were to get a Dillon, I'd probably recommend something like a 750. But if you are new to the game, I do have a playlist in my playlist area. So go to playlists, you'll find my reloading pistol ammo 101. It's kind of exactly what I'm doing here, but more in depth. And it's a great benefit for those that are just getting into reloading, especially for pistol. And if you're getting into rifle reloading, you really need to check this ultimate reloading playlist for rifles. And just recently, we just got done doing some live streams for 45 ACP. So if you are new and you really want to learn and you watch these three and you still don't know how to reload after that, well, you just don't want to learn. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that should be a great benefit for those that are just getting into the game. So definitely check those out. And let me jump back into the chat room, and I'm going to go back over some of this again. And I know some of you guys have already seen this, but I'm using the Lee Deluxe 4-die set. And I know some of you guys have already seen this in the last stream, but if you're new to my channel, I'm using the Lee Deluxe 4-die set. And for the price, I'm telling you, these Lee die sets are just really, really hard to beat. And it's getting to the point where I'm not even using my Hornady 3-die sets anymore. I'm really in love with these 4-die Lee pistol die sets. So Rob P saying I'm skipping his questions, so I'm going back. I don't want to skip anyone's questions. Or just like to blabber a little bit. Rob P saying, hey, Elfin, hope to learn how to avoid case bulge when inserting lead stuffs. And, you know, usually when it comes to case bulge, you really need to measure that brass beforehand and see what's going on with that brass. And especially more times than not, you're not belling out that case mouth opening enough to accept that new bullet. And that's where belling out the case mouth opening just right. You don't want too much, but you don't want too little. If you have too much, you're going to split that case, or you're going to ruin the longevity of that brass. But if you have too little, you're going to run into things like that with case bulge, and you just got to get it just perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go over that here just a little bit. I'm going to go through all these steps actually a little bit. But I definitely don't want you to feel like I skipped your question. So definitely don't unsub. So, see here. Operator Tony's saying, hey, Todd. Michael D saying, occasionally it's cracking. So, gosh, I wish I could get this fixed. Is it really bad on the crackling? I thought I had it fixed. Maybe I don't. So the Dilio 187 saying, I'm loading up 260 Repton as you speak. And operator Tony saying, Todd, is that a new powder scale? And if you're talking about the FX120i, I would say it's new. I've had it for, I don't know, I would say 4 or 5 months now. Matter of fact, I have a playlist on that. So if you did miss this, I have a very extensive video series on the FX120i and all the upgrades I've done to it and my personal settings. So they don't exactly give this FX120i Auto Trigger V3 combo unit away. It's about $1,100. So it's definitely not an intro level scale. But if you want to step up from a Charge Master this would be, in my opinion, the way to go. And if you did miss this, definitely check that out in my playlist area on the FX420i. And I got probably the most information you're going to find on YouTube on that particular scale. So I would say I'm new to it. I would say quite an expert on it quite right now. Matter of fact, if you check out my settings, I think they're just perfect. So hopefully that answers your question. But just to answer go back to your question there, Rod P, and I think who's saying this, it doesn't make sense. He's kind of touching base what I just mentioned. Bell the mouth a little bit more, maybe you use a factory crimp. Man, he's spot on. I think it really is all about getting the correct bell. You got to bell out that case mouth opening with this particular die, which matter of fact, I could just show you here right now. Let's just rock that out. Let me get you a little bit closer to the press. So I definitely don't want to make you feel like you're being ignored, because I try to answer everyone's questions. So in the Hornady lock and load AP press, obviously there's 5 total stages. And I kind of touched base with this on the previous live event and also in my playlist area on that edited video, is if you could try and use a powder cop die in one of your stages, especially if you're not going to verify, manually inspect your cases for powder drops, try and use some type of powder cop die. What this does is it checks the levels of the powder in the case when it drops the powder from the powder drop itself. And if you can use this, especially if you're just flying along, especially if it's an automated press, you absolutely need to have this, in my opinion. If you're not going to physically check those cases to make sure powder is dropped, a few things, you got to make sure powder drops at least, and it's got to be at the correct level. You don't want, if you're shooting for 4 grains, for example, and it only drops 1 grain, you can get what's called a squib load. Especially even worse if there's no powder in there and there's just a primer, that primer goes off, that you're going to get what's most likely called a squib load, where the bullet is going to exit the brass and it's most likely going to get stuck in the barrel. And especially if you're pulling the trigger really fast, you don't catch that sound or that feeling of the different type of powder rate going off, and you pull that trigger again with another round right behind it, there's a good chance that that barrel is going to go, it's gonna blow up. It's not gonna be good. So you either got to physically inspect those cases, which I'm about to show you that here in a little bit. But if you don't physically inspect those cases, you're flying through this, and especially if you use an Autobot situation, if you're eventually going to get to that point, you definitely need some type of method to check your powder levels. So whether it's analog like this or something like electronic that beeps and yells at you if there's no powder, in that case, you definitely need to have this. And I kind of touched base with that in the edited version of loading for 9mm pistol. So in this first spot right here, first stage, usually more times than not, is going to be the full length resizer. And not only does this resize the brass, it gets this brass that's out of spec back into spec, and it just reforms the case body of the pistol brass itself back into spec. And also it knocks out the primer. You can see it has the depriming pin here. It knocks out that primer. And all of my brass, I'll thoroughly clean it using my Frankfurt Arsenal stainless steel tumbler, wet tumbling, and I will thoroughly clean it. And then once I take that out, I'll dry it in my Lyman Case Prep Center, and I'll dry it for 3 hours straight. And it's super crucial to make sure that your primer pockets are dry as a bone. If there is any water or moisture in those primer pockets, when you knock that out and you reseat the new primer, and matter of fact, I will clip you guys out of here so you can see this a little bit clearer, especially for those that are absolutely new. You could see right after this stage, the first stage, is you're going to see the primer. And you got to make sure those primer pockets are absolutely bone dry. If there's any type of moisture in there, it's not going to be good for the new primer, especially if they're sopping wet. So I would highly even suggest, if you just clean a whole batch for future reloading, is to pop out one of those primers and physically inspect it. Make sure that they are absolutely bone dry. Maybe you pop out a couple and just make sure. take 2 or 3 random pieces, pop out that primer, make sure that they are absolutely bone dry. Now, the next part here, after resizing and popping out that primer, is the expander die. And that's where, my good friend Rod P, you might be having your issues with bulging. You're not belling out or expanding that case mouth enough to accept that bullet. And I'm about to show that to you here in a little bit. If I grab one of these pieces, you know, you can see I'm having a heck of a time getting this bullet inside that case mouth opening. And what this does is it bells it out just enough to start the process of seating that bullet. And if you don't do that, what's going to happen is what you're most likely running into is the case is going to bulge. And also you're going to strip or scratch or rip off the copper jacket of the bullet, ruining its accuracy. So it's really important to make sure you bell that just right. And that's what the second part of the progressive reloading press does, is this bells out the case mouth opening. I'll show that to you in a little bit. And it gets it just right. And you can adjust this so the flare is too much or too little. And obviously you want it just right. So I'm going to show that to you here in a little bit. So after the case mouth opening is flared out, the next part is dropping powder with the powder drop here. And right now I have this set at 4 total grains. Now keep this in mind, this is my load data. This isn't your load data. I do not use this. This is mine. You need to do your own homework. But what I'll do is I will test and make sure that this is dropping 4 total grains of powder. Matter of fact, I'm going to show that to you right now. Let me clip you guys out of here. I'm just going to make sure that we're spot on at 4 total grains of CFEpistol. And I'm just going to grab any type of piece of brass out of here. Doesn't matter which one it is. I'm just going to make sure that the primer isn't sticking out and bulging. And I'm going to use this as a measuring cup, pretty much. And what I'm going to do is I got my Charge Master here calibrated, and I put that piece of brass on there, and you can see this piece of brass weighs 62.3 total grains. So I'm going to zero this out. So this is not an equation. So when I drop powder in this measuring cup, that I'm measuring strictly just powder. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to clip it in, and I'm going to run this, and we're going to drop a charge of CFEpistol. So I'm going to clip this out. And we are right at 4.0. I've already done this numerous times. And usually what I'll do is I'll do this process until I can get this to drop consistently 3 or 4 times in a row. And what I'll do is I'll drop that back in and tap this home, make sure there's no powder left in there. And we'll do this again and make sure that it drops right at 4 total grains of CFEpistol. We're right on the money. So that looks really good. So like I said, I've already set this up. We're ready to rock and roll. So I'm not wasting your guys' time. So just the key is when you're doing this, you got to make sure you tap out all the powder before you do this again, because there's always a little bit of powder that will get stuck in that flash hole. And if you don't do that, it's going to skew your readings. So it's really important to make sure that's done, and obviously clean up your powder. So it's not just laying on your bench. So I'll have to do that later. But let me clip you guys back in. So after that, at least in this stage, what I would recommend doing, have the opening for it, is to use a powder cop die of some sort, especially if you're not going to physically inspect your cases. Being that I seat and crimp my rounds in 2 separate processes, you can get one die that seats and crimps in one, so it will open up a slot, so you can put a powder cop die in there. But I tell you, those seaters that crimp and seat all in one are a pain in the butt to use, and they don't create consistent results. So in my situation here, I only have 5 spots and I have a separate seeder and crimp. I need to eliminate my powder cop. Now, because of that, I need to physically inspect every single charge before I seat the bullet. I need to look in it, make sure there's powder, and also make sure the level of that powder is consistent to the one before it and the one after it. Because if it's not, you're going to have a very bad day. And so this is already set, ready to rock and roll for this COL. If you're new, you're not sure what COL stands for, that's an acronym that stands for cartridge overall length. And we're going to do the recommended COL out of the book is 1.1, but I'm going to extend that out just about 15 thousandths of minutes. It's just a little bit, not much. And I've already tested this with some of these that I already did ahead of this live event, and they plunked fine and they passed the case gauge test. So I'm going to show that to you here in a little bit. So right after that, once the bullet is seated, we're going to go to the taper crimp die. Now, what's really nice about these 4-die Lee deluxe pistol sets is they have what's called the Lee factory crimp die, and it's really hard to beat this die for doing a taper crimp. The taper crimp, in my opinion, is just perfect, and it's not hard to figure out. It's literally you figure out your COL. Once you figure out your COL, you lefty loosey counterclockwise unscrew this stem of the taper crimp out so it's not in contact with the case mouth opening, and you run the bullet up. You turn this down until it comes in contact with the bullet or the case mouth opening, and then you, according to Lee's instructions here on their crimp die, is screw the Lee carbide factory crimp die in until it touches the shell holder and back out the adjustment screw. With the loaded round in the die, turn the adjustment screw in until you feel it just touch the case mouth. Then move the cartridge out of the die slightly and screw the adjustment screw in a half turn for a light crimp and 1 full turn for a heavy crimp. You got to take that with a grain of salt on that. You really need to measure the case mouth opening once the bullet has been seated and crimped. And usually I try to shoot for that 0.377 on the case mouth opening. I'm going to show that to you here in a little bit. But that's pretty much the main steps. At least that's the method to my madness. Now, this is what I do. It's not what you do. This load data is not what you do. This is what I do. So keep that in mind. So let me get you guys plugged back in here so I don't lose the juice on my phone. And I see someone dropped down a super chat. Let me hunt that down. It's my good friend Hunting Steel CA. I hit Steel CA and he said, "Damn it, can I get a refund, Todd?" No, you can't. Sorry. It's that money's gone. Sorry, buddy. I'm just kidding. So hopefully for those guys that are absolutely new to the game, that kind of explains the process in a quick rundown. And I'm going to show it to you here in a little bit. But let me just double check some of your comments here, make sure I'm not missing anybody. And hopefully Rod P, that answers your question, because trust me, I don't want to miss your comments there. So what else here? So if I did miss any questions, I'm really sorry about that. So 1911 smoking gun, saying I might have missed it, but what dies are you using? And this is the Lee Deluxe 4-die set. And you can usually get this for about $40. If a really good deal, maybe $35 for a 3-die set. I mean, that's just amazing deal, and they work just fantastic. They work so good for 9mm that I went and bought the 45 ACP, and the 45 ACP works just as good. A huge fan of that taper crimp factory die. It's hard to beat. It really is, especially for the money. So Drain the Swamp 2.0 saying, all I want for Christmas is something small to load, 300 blackout. How much that set me back? I'll tell you, if you check out PSA's 300 blackout, they do have some complete firearms at PSA. You can usually get the complete firearms over there. I think last time I linked affiliate link off of PSA on my Facebook page. I want to say it was about $700. But I tell you, especially during the Black Friday sales, regardless if it's 300 blackout, it could be 556, 300 blackout, 7.62 by 39. Who knows what they got over there? But if you can buy the upper and lower separately, and have the upper shipped to your front doorstep and the lower shipped to your FFL, you could usually save, I would say a lot of money, but you could definitely save some money. And once in a while, their complete firearms are about the same price or cheaper, but it's pretty rare. So I definitely check that out with PSA. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an affiliate of PSA. I truly believe they make an amazing product, especially for the price. It really is hard to beat. Especially if you're looking at a 300 blackout. So Hemi, for you and me, is saying, where are you peeps finding primers? And definitely check out my Facebook page. If I find primers, I'm going to let you guys know. And the only way for you to know that is to make sure you're on my Facebook page, Elfster's Rifles Reloading. You're following me, and hit that that thumbs up and follow button on there. Last time I posted, I was able to get, I think it was 5,000 CCI large rifle primers shipped per 1,000 round box. I want to say I got them shipped to my front doorstep after hazmat fees out the door for $36. I had to buy 5,000 of them. So stock up when you can, especially now. If you see those deals, hook up. So what else we got here? Let's see here. So I think that's, I'll come back to your comments here. I just want to keep the ball rolling here. So yeah, let's do some stuff here. Now, when it comes to this lead eye set, I highly recommend getting these stupid rings off. These Lee rings that come with, they're absolute junk. And what I did is I took those off and I put on a nice set of Hornady rings on there. Night and day difference, especially when you can lock these down. They're really nice to use. So I'd use something like a Hornady ring. So get those stupid Lee rings off. They're absolute junk in my opinion. So let me get you a little bit close and personal here so you can see what's going on. Make sure there's enough room for myself. So let's just grab a piece of brass here, and you can see it's got spent primer in here. So you can see the strike on it. And this is cleaned. So it's thoroughly clean and it's thoroughly dry. I can't stress that enough. You need to make sure that those primer pockets are absolutely dry. So when you're running your press handle, you got to make sure you're using full stroke motions. You don't want to short stroke it in both directions. You're coming all the way down. And you can see I got my bucket at the bottom here. Usually I'll make sure all my primers are shifted to one side. So I'm leaving one empty side. So when the spent primer goes in my primer bucket, I personally like to physically hear that primer hit the empty side of the bucket. So I'll make sure that the primer tube, when that primer is expelled, it's hitting the empty side of the bucket. I can physically hear it. So let's run through one single piece here. So we're coming up, we're going to decap this, and you can hear that primer is expelled. I'm coming back down and I'm seating a new primer off the primer shuttle, and that primer is now expelled and the new primer is seated. And if you're absolutely new and you're just setting up this whole process, what you might want to do is, I gotta make sure this is just set right. There we go. What you want to do when you're seating your primers at first is making sure that your primers are seating just below flush. And what I like to do is what's called the tabletop test. You take your piece of brass and you slap it down on your bench top. If it slaps down fast and flat, that means that the primer is not, at least not sticking out past flush. If it is sticking out past flush, you can do what's called the slam fire, because the primer is sticking out past flush and it can preemptively hit the bolt face and go off before the cartridge is even in the chamber, and that's going to be a bad day. So you got to make sure that the primer is seating just below flush. Now that we seated the primer, this is that next step, especially for rod P. This is where belling out the case mouth opening is so crucial. And I haven't belled this out yet, and this is hard to show, especially on my live stream, because this doesn't focus that well on the live camera. But you can see it's straight on the case mouth opening. I'm going to bell this out now. This is where making sure that this is belled out just right. So now I just belled out the case mouth opening. It kind of puts a slight flare on it. And this is where you got to make sure you don't over flare it. If you over flare, what's going to happen is you're going to ruin the longevity of that brass, especially if you're flaring it out and you're getting a split on the case mouth openings. You're definitely flaring it way too much. The name of the game here is just to strictly get this case mouth to flare open just enough to hold the bullet. And a good way to test that is if you could tip it upside down. You know, you don't see a huge gap around the bullet, but it's open enough to insert the bullet. And this kind of helps, especially with this bullet, because it has a bolt tail. Not all of them have a bolt tail. That bolt tail definitely helps seat that bullet, but a lot of them usually don't have a bolt tail. This definitely helps not only insert the bullet in there so you can seat it properly, but when it's seated all the way home, that it doesn't rip off the copper jacket, especially on some of these berry bullets that are copper plated. And also so you don't get that bulge in the brass. So you got to get it just right. So like I said, too little or too much, you got to have it just like porridge. You just got to be just right. So now we are at the point of flaring out the case mouth opening. Next part, we're going to come up and take that 4.0 grains of CFEpistol powder. So it's coming up. It's going to take its charge, coming back down. And now I have my charge in here. So you can kind of see the powder in there. And what you're going to do when you're measuring that powder initially to set up your powder drop, and you know for a fact it is exactly 4 total grains, you're going to inspect the level of that powder. You're going to take a mental note of that powder. You're going to go, okay, I know, just being that you're not using a powder cop die, you're physically inspecting that case mouth opening. I'll see if I can get this down a little bit better so you can see it better. You're physically taking a mental note of how the level of that powder is in that case. It's not going to be too low, but it's not going to be too high. You're physically going to have to inspect it because you're not using a powder cop die. At least in my situation, I'm not. So it's definitely important to keep note of that powder level if not using a powder cop die and you're physically inspecting those case openings for the powder level. So I've physically checked this case. I see that it does have powder, and this is where I'm grabbing one of my Hornady XTP 147 grain bullets. It has a hollow point, and I've checked the level is good. This is where belling that case mouth opening is just, it's got to be just right, not too much, not too little. And this is where it's going to come to the next part, and it's actually going to seat the bullet. So I'm now seating the bullet to the coal that I desire. I'm going to grab my iGaging calipers. I tell you, if you guys want an awesome set of calipers, in my opinion, this is the best calipers for under 50 bucks. And matter of fact, my good friend Michael D here just hooked up with a pair, and I think he can attest of how awesome these are. And if anyone's going to know and have an opinion, it's going to be this Michael D. The guy literally loads thousands and thousands of rounds a day. I mean, he's kind of a mentor of myself, and we kind of rely on each other for good information. And so I'm kind of shooting for that coal of 1.115, and I should be good to go on this. I'll double check this. So as long as it's, now the tips of these bullets aren't exactly perfect. You can tell that they're hollow points, and they're definitely not going to have a lot of consistency to them. But as long as I'm around that 1.115, I'm going to be happy. And don't drive yourself absolutely crazy with these bullet tips. They're very inconsistent, but as long as you're in that area, you can see it's 113. We're talking 2/1000 of an inch. I'm not going to be worried about it. Matter of fact, the next one might be perfect. Next one might be 115. Next one might be 116. Next one might be 110. As long as I'm averaging that desired coal of 115, I'm happy with that. Because remember, especially with hollow points, these tips are not perfect at all. So now, with that being said, I have yet to go on my final stage here of doing the taper crimp die with a Lee factory die set. And that's where it's going to take crimp the case mouth opening down on the bullet and eliminate that flare that we did on the expander die. And it's really important to do that because right now I haven't ran this through the crimp die yet. And you can tell if I put this in this case gauge, it might fit, but look at it won't fall out. And that's because I haven't crimped yet. See, so it fits and it's nice and flush, but it won't fall out. Now watch this. So I'm going to knock this out with a pen because I haven't crimped it yet. So I'm going to knock this out of the case gauge. Now watch, I'm going to put a crimp on this and it's going to eliminate that flare. Remember, we had to put the flare on there to seat the bullet so the brass doesn't bulge. We don't rip the copper jacket off the bullet so it ruins the accuracy of the bullet. And we are now going to crimp this. And usually what I'm shooting for with at least 9mm is exactly this. It's right on the money, 0.377 inches. And that is the desired crimp, at least in my opinion. I kind of confirmed this with Michael D. that reloads a heck of a lot more than I do, of 0.377 at the case mouth opening, and that is spot on. Now that I have this crimp, you're going to watch. You guys witness this. I ain't BSing you. I'm going to take this, and it will now easily slide in and out of this case gauge. And it is spot on, my friends. It's nice and flush. It's not too high. This case gauge has 2 steps in it. The lower step, you don't want to be below the lower step, and you don't want to be above the higher step. Usually rule of thumb is you're trying to get it so this nice and flush, and this is absolutely perfect. And I'll test this like this. You can tell right before I did the crimp, it got stuck in there. Now that I have the crimp, it's nice and smooth. And that is the objective. Primer is just below flush. This flows in and out of the case gauge just perfect. And what I highly recommend doing is not only using a case gauge, at least for pistol, is doing a barrel plunk test. And I've literally ripped the barrel out of my SIG P320. And I like to do what's called the barrel plunk test. And you want this so the bullet plunks right in there. Matter of fact, I'll get my microphone up to this. You can hear it plunking. Hear that nice plunk? So you're listening for the plunk. There's 3 things you usually want to look for. You're checking the plunk. You're going to spin the bullet to make sure that it spins and the bullet isn't in contact with the rifling lands. And you're also, at least with a striker fire type barrel like this, if it's a Glock or a SIG P320, you want the base of the brass to be just flush with this part of the barrel. So it's just perfect. You know, you don't want it way below, but you don't want it above this part of the barrel. So there's 3 things you're checking for. The plunkness, you want to hear the audible plunk. You want to spin the finished round, make sure it spins. Bullet's not coming in contact with the rifling. And it's just flush, maybe ever so slightly. When I say ever so slightly, we're talking razor thin just below this part of the barrel. And it successfully is past that. Once that's done, that's finished round, my friends. So let me double check your questions so I can answer them. Doesn't matter if it's pistol or rifle. I'll try my best to answer them. So I got to do a lot of catch up here. So I might miss some of your comments here, and if I do, I'm sorry. But let me make sure we're still live here. I'm going to refresh this, make sure we're good. I got to get a drink of water because I've been blabbering too much. Good old Armin Axis. He's saying Todd will never finish the wall. I'm never going to do it now just because you said so, and I'm stubborn. So let me back up here. I think I missed a lot of comments there, especially on that tyrant of knowledge breakdown on pistol reloading 101. So let's see here. So make sure you're smashing that thumbs up, and especially if you're new, make sure you're hitting that notification bell. And when you do hit that notification bell, make sure you hit notification all so you get those notifications, especially when I go live like this. So Bad Billy's telling hit steel, no refunds. Sales are final. What else we got here? So I got to kind of skim through these. So sorry if I missed some of your comments. I'll try my best to answer as much as I can. So Rod P saying, Elfman, I do not use Facebook. How can I find out about your tips and on primers? It's really I can't post that information here on YouTube. They just won't let me. It's really about the only way I can do it is to either be on Parler. I am on Parler now, by the way. So if you are on Parler, make sure you're jumping over there and following me on Parler. It's the second I do it on Facebook, it's immediately on Parler. It's getting to the point where Parler is starting to outperform my Facebook page with a fraction of the followers. And when I say the fraction, I got what 4,300 people follow me on Facebook, and I only have about 210 on Parler, and my Parler is outperforming my Facebook, and that's because they have me so shadow banned, and it's about pathetic. And that's the truth. It's just because we don't agree on something. It's kind of BS, but whatever. So it doesn't make sense saying, by the way, Elfman CFEpistol is my current go-to pistol powder across cartridges, though Clay's is best for 9 and 40. And that's, if you're new, if you want probably the most universal powder, is probably going to be Unique. Unique is very hard to be in regards to how universal, this is Bullseye, sorry. I'm talking Unique. Unique is probably the most universal pistol powder there is, my opinion, but it's ultra dirty. So keep that in mind. And it's just about your own adventure. It's about finding what works best for you and your pistols. There is no right or wrong, but that's, in my opinion, Unique is probably the most universal, very inexpensive. So, but yeah, if you guys are on Parler, make sure you're checking me out over there and you're following to get those deals. My good friend Jared Bear Tactical is also in the Elfster's Reloading Room saying, good evening, Todd. My good friend Clover Tack is in the house. He's saying, I just get used to the feel of the primer through my fingers as I'm loading the rounds, or at least I've gotten used to that. Can tell a primer that is not seated really quick, and that's a good point. And talk about amazing guy and amazing channel. Make sure you're checking out that Clover Tack channel. Make sure you're subscribing to him. Jared Perry Tactical is saying, guys, girls, don't forget to smash that thumbs up. So yeah, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up and you're hitting that notification bell. What else we got here? Chris Smith is saying we'll have to check out Parler. Really actually liking it. It's mostly a big room of conservatives. So, but I tell you, I'm about sick of being shadow banned on Facebook, and that's just eventually what's going to happen. Like I said, I don't like to be too political on this channel. That's about the extent of what I'm going to say on that. But yeah, make sure you're also checking out my other channels, Elfster's Minute Americans, but also check out Elfster's, EP Integrations. The EP 2.0 nailer is about to go live, and it's about to go out to testers here very soon. And we're wrapping up the machine parts here, and a lot of the parts are pretty much here already. We're waiting on a few things. It's gonna be spectacular. I can't wait to get that in the hands of the testers here really soon. So other Tim Davis is also in the Elfster's Reloading saying, hey Todd. So I'll make sure I'm not, I got a lot of comments here because we're almost up to about 100 people here. But let me do some more reloads here just to show you how quick and easy this is, especially for those that are absolutely new, and I'll get back to your comments. So I'm grabbing a piece of brass here, down with a full stroke, ejecting that primer, listening to that primer, coming back, accepting that new fresh primer, grab another piece of brass, full motion strokes. Make sure you're pushing forward with force to seat that primer just right. So this is where I'm inspecting the case, mouth opening. The level looks consistent compared to the one before it. It looks good. This one looks consistent. And kabam, just like that. That's what you call 9mm sexiness. And once again, I'll just quick show for those guys that are absolutely new to the game and checking out. That is just perfect. It's just nice and flush. Slides in and out, no problem. It's not getting stuck in the case gauge. Grabbing the barrel, listen for the plunk. You hear the plunk spinning around, spins freely. The bullet's not in contact with the rifling. It's just flush with this part of the barrel or just a smidge bit below it. And this also falls in and out freely. Hear the plunk? That's where it gets the barrel plunk test name. So grab another piece, grab another bullet. Make sure when you're putting these bullets in too, try and get them, they don't have to be perfect, but you want them reasonably straight. So keep that in mind. So full stroke motions, nice tug at the bottom, going forward, and we're going with a nice tug forward to seat the primer. So bullet. And once you get a method to your madness down, you can kind of just give her hell, my friends. And this is where, if you're not prepared and stockpiling those components and prices start getting out of whack, you're going to wish you have a progressive press and the components to do such. You know, and some of these guys with like Dillons, especially like a Dillon 1050, they got these automated with an Autobot. They got a powder cop die of some sort to check these levels. They get really sophisticated. And matter of fact, I'm going to do a live event here soon with Michael D that reloads thousands and thousands of rounds. And we're going to kind of show you his setup and the method of his madness. And when he doesn't have just one, he has a building full of progressive presses on automated Autobots. And I'm excited to show it to you guys. And it's going to be spectacular. And I'm sure some of you guys are really going to thoroughly enjoy that. So I'm going to do a couple more here. If you got any questions, let them rip. Otherwise, I'm probably going to wrap this up here. Just do a couple more. And that is about it, my friends. So what you can do, matter of fact, I'm just going to finish these up here. So I'm going to let this run through all the way. All right, so if you can envision this, all 100, there's 100 bullets in here. So imagine there's 100 in here, because if I do 100, we're gonna be here all night. But you can tell, at least with these finished rounds, what you're gonna get due to the taper crimp die is you're gonna get these little specks of brass shavings. Usually the crimp die will leave some of these little deposits of brass, and it's kind of hard to show this because this won't focus on a live feed. But there's just these little minute pieces of brass filings. And usually what I'd recommend doing is grabbing a towel. So what you can do is grab a towel, and you can take a towel and make sure you guys can see this. And this is where getting brake cleaner, and make sure it's non-chlorinated brake cleaner. You could take a towel like this. I'll probably get a little bit bigger towel. My other towel is getting washed that I typically use, but this will get my point across. You could take your 100 pieces or 200 pieces. I don't care what it is. Hopefully you're reloading more than this, and it's more like 500 pieces. And you could literally take your brake cleaner and spray it. Now, this is very flammable, so you got to make sure there's no flames around this. And I'll literally spray this down, and I'll take this and make a hammock out of it. And this is how I clean the brass before I store it away. Usually I would get a bigger towel than this. So get like an actual towel you use in your bathroom when you're about to throw away. I usually do this about 2 times. Usually this is a lot easier with a heck of a lot more finished rounds rather than just 10 or 15 or whatever this is. And this will clean it right up. And there's all these little brass filings here. You can kind of see it. They're really minute, and you just don't want that all over your ammo. Especially if you lube your brass. This is another way you can get the lube off the brass. But you can spray a little brake cleaner in your tray. You can wipe this out. And yes, this is flammable, but it evaporates so quick. I mean, obviously you don't want to be smoking or smoking immediately after this. But you can clean up your tray. And then usually what I'll do, these are finished. Nice and clean. And I will grab a Ziploc bag, which I'm currently out of. But usually I just throw mine in Ziploc bags. And I'll throw my info card in that Ziploc bag along with my finished rounds and store it away. And that's it. And like I said, if you're getting into reloading and you think you're going to do any type of pistol, in my opinion, just jump down the rabbit hole and get a progressive press. Trust me, I think you're going to thank me for it later. Because it just obviously speeds up the whole situation. Now, with that said, I mean, obviously you can do all that with a single stage, and it is possible. But with that being said, obviously you're going to be taking every die out. You're going to put your decapping die and sizer die. You take that out, put the flare in. You know, then you get a powder drop separately, and then seat, crimp. I mean, it's just a lot of screwing around, especially if you're new to the game. And I just recommend just getting some type of progressive press. It's just my own personal opinion. So, code operator, he's back in the house. It's fantastic. We've got about 100 people watching right now. That is awesome. Make sure you're smashing that thumbs up. And so sorry if I miss any of your comments here. I just got to do a little bit of catch up here. So Armin and Axe saying, I've had great luck with CFEpistol. I've found that most Alliant powders are dirty, and they really are, especially that unique. It's very, very dirty. Hemi for you and me is saying CFE black is for 300 blackout, I believe. Blackout. Eagle Eye Shooting, also in the Elfster's reloading room, saying, what's up, brother? Want to try some cast bullets? ? Got a 90 grain zinc hollow point that acts like a G2 RIP 1500 feet per second 9mm. That sounds really interesting. I know enough in the pistol reloading world to get myself in trouble. And that's obviously why my channel is not called Elfster's Rifles and Pistols. But I definitely would be interested. I'd love to talk to you about that. Matter of fact, check out Eagle Eye Shooting's channel. Awesome guy, super knowledgeable. Matter of fact, he's coming out with the target cam here very, very soon. Very affordable, and the cam going to extend way past 1,000 yards, and for the money, it's going to be really hard to beat. And I can't wait to get my hands on that. So make sure you're checking out his channel. So, what else here? So I just want to mention this. This is my load data. This isn't yours. So make sure you're doing your own homework. I can't stress that enough. So Wonder King saying get a powder cop, and I highly suggest doing that if you have the station for it and you're not physically inspecting every single case. It's very, very important to make sure you don't get a squib. Mason Anderson saying I just subscribed. I appreciate that so much. Jerry Bear Tech saying enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I got to take off, and thank you for joining us, my friend. So what else we got here? So Rob P saying thumbs up, Mr. Elf. I appreciate that. Hopefully I'm answering your questions there. So Wonder King saying none of my lead taper crimp dies make brass flex. You might want to double check that. I've yet to see a crimp die that doesn't. They're very minute. I mean, they are so hard to see. I personally like to just clean those off, and it just makes some really nice clean finish rounds with that brake cleaner using the hammock method with a towel. So Rob P saying parlor ID. I cannot locate it. It should be Elfster's Rifles and Reloading. I'm pretty sure of it. I would check, but I can't right now. Dave 223 saying I use a Redding T7 turret press. I don't load more than a few hundred rounds. Man, I tell you that Redding T7 is an amazing press, especially if you want a nice balance between a single stage and a progressive. Kind of gives you the precision of a single stage. But obviously you can spin that turret head around and go between die set to die set for decapping and resizing, belling. You have to figure out your methods for dropping powder, most likely manually with a funnel. I suppose you could have a powder drop on there, but it'd be flying around. You probably wouldn't want to do that. And then your seating and crimp die. So I personally would. I started with the Hornady AP lock and load press. I think it's an amazing press, especially if you're just getting it and you can barely afford a progressive press. Usually you can get these off Brownells. Usually have a promo code for these off Brownells. Shipped, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think $485. That comes with a 500 bullet rebate promo. I believe they're back ordered right now, but you can still order them. If you check out Elfster's Rifles and Reloading and search on my channel for Hornady AP lock and load, you can still find that deal. I think I have a promo code on there to take, I believe it's $20 off on that. I think it's shipped for $480, I think. You cannot find this press on Amazon anymore for less than $800. It's insane. But otherwise, if you can, I would probably, if you can afford it, I'd probably get something like a Dillon 750. So, quad operators saying any updates on the kneeler? I kind of just mentioned that on the EP 2.0 kneeler. We got most of the parts in, motors are in. There's one thing that we're waiting in regards to the parts, and obviously we're waiting on some of the machine parts. They're supposed to be done here soon, most likely next week. The first initial batch of 10, we have a batch of 10 to be done. We have 10 total cases. 4 out of the 10 are going to testers, which is going to be Eagle Eye Shooting, Is Your Six covered, and most likely Ray with X-Ring. You'll probably be able to get his hands on it, being that's going to Rick with Is Your Six covered. Coda Boy 32, and my good friend Michael D there that reloads all of us more than he reloads more than all of us combined. I definitely want him to get his hands on it because the guy literally reloads thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds per day. It makes what I'm doing here look like a walk in the park. So, oh yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to wrap this up. If you got any questions, better let them rip right now. But I think this is a good general overview, at least with the Hornady XTP 9mm 147 grain hollow points. And these are more for use for home defense, I would say. They're not as cheap as berry bullets. If you're just getting to this and you want a more inexpensive bullet, more for plinking, I'll probably check out something like berry bullets. Matter of fact, I have most of my pistol bullets up here. So I got my 9mm round nose 115 grain. I got some other 9mm 124 grain berry bullets. These are copper plated, they're not copper jacketed. 124 grain. I got some 147 grain round nose berry copper plated bullets. And also I got my 45 ACP flavors here. So gotta stretch up here and show it to you guys. So I also have the XTPs in a 124 grain also right at the very top there. So I usually keep my pistol bullet flavors up there, and then most of my rifle rounds are down here. I'm a huge fan of 6.5 flavor bullets. So obviously you can see I love my Sierra of 142 grain hollow point boat tails here. Also got some good old Burgess here, hybrid targets, 6.5 pills in the 140 grain. I also have some 6mm here for my 243 precision rifle and a 107 grain hollow point boat tail. I do have some old school AMAXs, some ELD match for 6.5 pill flavors. I do have some Lapua. I didn't have great luck with my 6.5 Creedmoor with Lapuas, and these Sierra Match Kings blew those out of the water, but it really depends on your particular fire and what it likes to shoot. Your fire might love these, might hate these. You just don't know until you test it out. But yeah, I got some more ELD match here. I got some, what else do I got? I got some 243 or 6mm pills. You know, you can use this for 243. You could use this for a 6mm Creedmoor. Some other flavor bullets here. You're getting now into my 308 calibers for my Tikka 308, my T3X CTR. You want a really cheap bullet, like just a dirt cheap bullet that performs rather well at 300 yards or less. It's pretty hard to beat these match. You can get them for next to nothing. They're definitely not an ELD match, that's for sure, but they're stupid cheap. They're just a boat tail hollow point match bullet. And they perform amazing, at least on my Tikka T3X CTR. And then move some of these mags here. What else we got? So you're getting my 223 flavors here. I got some heavy 224 or 223 bullets here, 75 grain boat tail hollow points. Obviously I love my 60 grain VMAX. That's one of my pet load go-to bullets here for 223. So yeah, I got some heavy 75 grains. I usually don't load these much. 68 grain boat tail hollow points is just my go-to bullet here. In my opinion, if your barrel is 16, 18, 20, 24 inches, 1 in 8 twist, it's really hard to beat these flat base bullets, especially if you're shooting at 500 yards or less. Man, these things just perform, and I love them so much. That's why I have so many. And I've tried these lighter weight VMAX bullets, 53 grain VMAX and the 52 grain ELDMs. I just wasn't impressed with them. I just wasn't. And then all of my separate bullets here. You know, if I got some onesie, twosie, or tens, you know, if I run short on a box, I can pull one out. And I usually get these little containers at Menards, sometimes free after rebate. So if you can keep an eye out at Menards, if you got a local Menards, you can get these for free after rebate. But yeah, here's my concentricity gauge, the good old Sinclair concentricity gauge. So, but yeah, other than that, I think I'm going to wrap this up, my friends. Just a quick double check your comments. I think I've been going here for almost an hour. I got to finish these up, and I'm sure I'm annoying my woman the 10th power probably. She hates it when I go live. So code operator is saying, do you have a vid on reloading special bullets, tracers, AP rounds? I don't use tracer rounds at all. I'm more of a precision shooter. Usually I'm going to be shooting some type of boat tail hollow point or a ballistic tip of some sort, like an ELD match or something. So Wonder Wing is saying, I've been having a blast with 230 grain XTPs and 45 ACP plus P, 45 super. So Hit Steel CA saying, smoking ribs. You lucky son of a gun. I want to eat ribs. But yeah, okay, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. I hope, I'm sure I'm missing some of your comments here. I just can't get over all of them and go over all this information at the same time. So Hemi for you and me saying Dylan 750 is 649 with 1 caliber kit. Yeah, and like, you know, if I was to start back over, I probably would get a Dylan 750, but I'm not totally knocking the Hornady AP press. You know, if you want to get in the progressive world, like I said, check out my Facebook page with promo code. You can usually get this for under $500 shipped. And they usually have that 500 bullet promo code deal or rebate, mail-in rebate for 500 bullets, I believe, at least with the Hornady AP press. So other than that, I think we're gonna wrap this up. So Michael D saying cleaning brass myself. So well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I figured I'm reloading. I might as well have you join me on this adventure where you can learn and create your own adventure. And hopefully you're taking this information and you're passing this on to the next generation. That's truly how we are going to protect our rights, because your vote only lasts for about 2 or 4 years. So we need to continue this information on. I can't stress that enough. Well, if you feel like you learned something, enjoy my content, make sure you scratch my back, and I'll continue to scratch your back with these videos. Make sure you're not only subscribe, like, and share, but you hit that notification bell. And you hit notification, make sure you hit notification all, because if you don't, you will not get that notification. Trust me. Become a Patreon. It helps out more, you know. And also check out my other channels, Elfster's Minute Americans. I'm really trying my best to get that up to 1,000 subscribers. I think I'm up to about 350. And if you can do me a favor, jump over to Elfster's Minute Americans and subscribe, because once I hit 1,000, I really want to start doing live podcasts and more of this over there. Also check out my channel, EP Integrations. That's where you're going to get the most information on the EP 2.0 annealer here eventually. All that information is eventually going to go over there in regards to using the EP 2.0 annealer and when it's available. So make sure you're checking out all those channels, and not only on YouTube, but on Facebook. And I will see you guys in the next video.